The research ship Stellar Harmony moved slowly through the dark space between stars. Dr. Kira Veltan pressed her blue face against the cold window of the observation deck. Her forearms moved nervously as she watched the emptiness outside. She was looking for something that most people in the galaxy hoped they would never see: the Void Stalker. Kira had been studying dangerous space creatures for 20 years. She came from a water planet where her people, the Morans, were known for being smart and careful. But even she felt scared when she thought about the monster they were trying to find. "Doctor, we're getting close to the area where it was last seen," said Captain Thexmore. The tall, gray-skinned Zanari walked up behind her with heavy steps. His red eyes glowed in the dim light of the ship. "Are you sure about this?" Kira turned around, her tentacle-like hair moving as she nodded. "We have to study it, Captain. The Void Stalker has destroyed over 50 ships in the past 2 years. If we don't learn how it thinks, how it hunts, more people will die." The captain made a low growling sound. "My people have been fighting space monsters for 1,000 years. We know only one way to deal with things like this: shoot first, ask questions later." "That's exactly why you've never stopped it," Kira said quietly. "Every time someone attacks the Void Stalker, it gets stronger. It feeds on the energy from destroyed ships. Violence only makes it worse." Down in the engine room, Do-hyun wiped sweat from his face as he finished checking the power systems. He was 28 years old and had been working on spaceships for 5 years. Most of the crew didn't pay much attention to him. Humans were new to space travel, and many aliens thought they were weak and not very smart. Do-hyun didn't mind being ignored. It gave him time to watch and learn. While others talked about fighting or running away from dangerous things, he preferred to understand them first. His grandmother back on Earth had always told him, "The loudest dog is usually the most scared one." He climbed up through the ship's levels until he reached the main computer room. The walls were covered with screens showing information about space around them. Do-hyun had special permission to be here because he fixed the computers when they broke. On one screen, he saw the tracking data for the Void Stalker. The creature was huge, bigger than most space stations. It looked like it was made of black crystal, with sharp edges that could cut through anything. But Do-hyun noticed something others had missed. He pulled up the attack records from the past year and studied them carefully. The pattern was strange. The Void Stalker didn't just attack randomly. It would circle around ships for hours before striking. Sometimes it would make deep, sad sounds that traveled through space. The sounds reminded Do-hyun of whales from Earth's oceans, whales that had lost their families. "What are you doing here, human?" Do-hyun turned around to see Zephyr, one of the ship's security officers. Zephyr came from a planet where people looked like giant insects. His kind were known for being excellent fighters, but they thought humans were too soft for real work. "Just checking the computers," Do-hyun said calmly. The tracking system had a small problem earlier. Zephyr's compound eyes glittered as he looked at the screens. "You're looking at the monster data. Don't get any ideas about being a hero, human. When that thing shows up, you'll be hiding in the safety rooms with the other weak species." After Zephyr left, Do-hyun continued studying the information. He found something interesting in the old reports. Every time the Void Stalker attacked a ship, it stayed near the wreckage for a long time afterward. It wasn't just eating the energy from the broken ships. It seemed to be waiting, like it hoped something would come out of the wreckage and talk to it. 3 decks up, Dr. Kira was having a meeting with her research team. The room was full of aliens from different planets. There was Vex, a rock-like being from a high-gravity world. His people were famous for being tough and hard to scare. Next to him sat Dr. Yila, whose butterfly-like wings changed colors when she was excited. Her species could see into different types of light that others couldn't. The tracking satellites show the Void Stalker is moving toward the Kepler system, Kira explained, pointing at a star map. "If our calculations are right, it will reach the main shipping road in 6 days. "Perfect," said Vex in his deep, rocky voice. "We can set up weapons platforms and wait for it." Kira's tentacle hair moved in a way that showed she was frustrated. "That's exactly what we can't do. Every time someone tries to fight it, the creature gets more violent. We need to study it, not attack it." Dr. Yila's wings turned a worried purple color. "But how can we study something that destroys everything it touches? My people have saying, you cannot paint a picture of fire while standing in it." "We stay far away and use long-range sensors," Kira said. "We watch how it moves, what makes it choose certain targets, how it reacts to different types of ships. While the meeting continued upstairs, Do-hyun made his way to the ship's library. Most of the information was stored in computers, but he liked reading the old paper books that some crew members brought from their home planets. He found a book about Earth animals and sat down to read. The chapter about whales made him think more about the Void Stalker. Whales on Earth sometimes got separated from their families and would swim alone across huge oceans, calling out for others of their kind. Sometimes they would follow ships not to attack them, but because they were lonely and hoped the ships might lead them to other whales. Do-hyun closed the book and stared out the small window next to his chair. Space was so big, so empty. If there was only one Void Stalker left in the galaxy, it would be the loneliest creature that ever existed. The ship's alarm suddenly started ringing. Red lights flashed in the hallways and the captain's voice came over the speakers. All crew to stations. Long-range sensors have detected the target. The Void Stalker is heading directly for us. Do-hyun felt his heart start beating faster, but not from fear. He had an idea. A crazy, dangerous idea that no one would understand. He thought about his grandmother's words again, and about the lonely whales in Earth's oceans. Maybe the galaxy's most feared monster wasn't really a monster at all. As crew members ran past him toward their emergency positions, Do-hyun quietly made his way toward the equipment storage rooms. If he was right about the Void Stalker, then everything the galaxy believed about it was wrong. And if he was wrong, well, they would all be dead soon anyway. The ship shook slightly as Captain Thexmore changed course, trying to avoid the approaching creature. Through the walls, Do-hyun could hear Dr. Kira shouting orders to her research team. Everyone was preparing for the most dangerous encounter of their lives. But Do-hyun was preparing for something different. He was preparing to make a friend. The bridge of the Stellar Harmony was full of tension. Captain Thexmore stood in the center, his red eyes fixed on the main screen. The Void Stalker was getting closer, and it was bigger than any of them had imagined. "Distance to target?" the captain asked. 4 hours at current speed, replied Lieutenant Cora from her station. The young Zanari's hands shook as she worked the controls. "Captain, it's huge. The sensors say it's almost 2 kilometers long." Dr. Kira stood next to the captain, her forearms moving nervously. She had spent years studying dangerous creatures, but seeing the Void Stalker on the screen made her feel very small. The creature looked like a giant piece of black crystal floating through space. Sharp points stuck out from its body like the spikes on an ancient weapon. "All weapons ready, Captain," reported Commander Rix. The insect-like security chief clicked his mandibles together. "We have enough firepower to destroy a small moon." "No weapons," Kira said quickly. "Remember what happened to the destroyer Vanguard last month. They hit it with everything they had, and the creature just absorbed the energy and became stronger." Captain Thexmore growled low in his throat. "Then what do you suggest, Doctor?" "We can't outrun it. Long-range sensors show it's faster than our best engines." Kira looked at the screen again. The Void Stalker was moving in a strange pattern, not flying straight toward them, but moving in wide circles. "It's not attacking yet. Look at how it moves. It's circling us, like a predator studying its prey," Commander Rick said, his compound eyes glittering. "Or like something that's curious," Kira said quietly. Down in the equipment storage room, Do-hyun was putting on a spacesuit. His hands moved quickly but carefully as he checked each piece of equipment. The suit was designed to keep humans alive in space for up to 6 hours. He hoped he wouldn't need that much time. "What are you doing?" Do-hyun turned around to see Mira, one of the ship's engineers. She was from a planet where people looked almost human, but had silver skin and larger eyes. Mira was one of the few crew members who was always kind to him. "I need to go outside," Do-hyun said simply. Mira's silver face went pale. "Outside now? Do-hyun, there's a monster out there that can destroy our entire ship." "I know," Do-hyun said as he continued getting ready. "That's why I need to go." "That makes no sense," Mira said, but she helped him check his suit anyway. "Explain to me why you want to die today." Do-hyun stopped and looked at her. "What if it's not a monster? What if it's just lonely?" Mira stared at him like he had said something crazy. "Lonely? Do-hyun, that thing has killed thousands of people. Dogs bite when they're scared or hurt," Do-hyun said. "Bears attack when they feel trapped. Maybe the Void Stalker attacks because it doesn't know how to ask for help." Before Mira could argue more, Do-hyun activated his suit's communication system and connected to the bridge. Captain Thexmore, this is Do-hyun in Storage Bay 7. I need permission to go outside. The bridge went completely quiet. Captain Thexmore looked at Dr. Kira, who looked just as confused as everyone else. Did that human just ask to go outside? Commander Rix asked in disbelief. Captain Thexmore pressed the communication button. Do-hyun, you will return to your quarters immediately. We are in a dangerous situation. I understand the danger, Captain, Do-hyun replied calmly, but I think I can help. Dr. Kira moved closer to the communication panel. She remembered reading about humans and their strange behavior. They sometimes did things that seemed completely illogical but somehow worked. Do-hyun, this is Dr. Kira. What exactly are you planning to do? I want to try talking to it, Do-hyun said. The bridge exploded with voices. Everyone was talking at once, and most of them thought the human had lost his mind. But Dr. Kira held up one of her hands for quiet. Talking to it how? She asked. The creature makes sounds that travel through space, Do-hyun explained. I've been studying the recordings. The sounds have patterns like it's trying to communicate. My suit has emergency beacons that can make similar patterns. Captain Thexmore's red eyes flashed. Absolutely not. I will not let you commit suicide on my ship. With respect, Captain, Do-hyun said. We're all going to die if we keep doing what hasn't worked. Every ship that tried to fight it was destroyed. Every ship that tried to run away was caught and destroyed. Maybe it's time to try something different. Dr. Kira studied the main screen. The Void Stalker was still circling them, but it hadn't attacked. In her 20 years of studying predators, she had never seen behavior like this. Captain, he might be right. The creature is acting strange. It's been in weapons range for 30 minutes but hasn't fired. Because it's playing with us, Commander Rick said angrily. Predators often play with their food before killing it. Or because it's trying to figure out what we are, Dr. Kira said. She turned to the communication panel. Do-hyun, if I let you try this insane plan, how will you stay safe? I won't be safe, Do-hyun answered honestly. But if the creature wanted to destroy us, it would have done it already. I think it wants something else. Captain Thexmore walked to his command chair and sat down heavily. His species had survived by being careful and aggressive. They never took risks with unknown creatures, but they also had never encountered anything like the Void Stalker. Dr. Kira, he said finally, this is your research mission. What do you recommend? Kira felt the weight of everyone's lives on her shoulders. If she was wrong about this, everyone on the ship would die. But if the human was right, and there was a chance to communicate with the Void Stalker, it could change everything they knew about the creature. Let him try, she said quietly. The bridge went silent again. Commander Rix made an angry clicking sound with his mandibles. Doctor, you're asking us to trust our lives to a human's guess. I'm asking us to trust our lives to someone who sees things differently than we do, Kira replied. Sometimes a fresh perspective is exactly what we need. Captain Thexmore thought for a long moment. Finally, he pressed the communication button. Do-hyun, you have permission to leave the ship, but you will maintain constant communication with the bridge, and if I order you to return immediately, you will obey without question. Understood, Captain, Do-hyun said. Thank you. In the storage bay, Mira helped Do-hyun finish preparing his equipment. I still think you're crazy, she said, but her voice was gentle. Maybe I am, Do-hyun admitted. But being crazy isn't always a bad thing. Dr. Kira left the bridge and hurried down to the storage bay. She wanted to see the human before he left the ship. When she arrived, Do-hyun was standing by the airlock, fully suited and ready to go. Why are you doing this? She asked him directly. Do-hyun thought for a moment before answering. On my planet, there are creatures called whales. They're huge and live in the ocean. Sometimes a whale gets lost and swims alone for years, calling out for its family. The calls are very sad and beautiful. When I heard the recordings of the Void Stalker's sounds, they reminded me of those lonely whale calls. Kira studied the human's face through his helmet. There was no fear in his eyes, only determination and something else. Compassion. If you're wrong about this, she said, you'll die very quickly. If I'm right, Do-hyun replied, maybe we can save a lot of lives. The ship shook slightly as the Void Stalker moved closer. On the bridge, Captain Thexmore watched the creature approach. It was now close enough that they could see details on its crystal surface. Strange lights moved under its skin like a slow heartbeat. Open the airlock, the captain ordered. As the airlock doors opened, Do-hyun looked out at the vast emptiness of space. Somewhere in that darkness was the galaxy's most feared creature. In a few minutes, he would either make history or become another victim of the Void Stalker. He took a deep breath and stepped out into the void. Do-hyun floated in the cold darkness of space, feeling very small and alone. His suit's systems hummed quietly around him, keeping him alive in the emptiness between stars. Through his helmet, he could see the stellar harmony getting smaller behind him as he drifted away from its safety. Ahead of him, the Void Stalker moved through space like a living mountain of black crystal. It was even more beautiful and terrifying up close. The creature's surface caught the light from distant stars and threw it back in rainbow patterns. Under its crystal skin, Do-hyun could see gentle lights moving like slow lightning. "Do-hyun, are you receiving?" Dr. Kira's voice came through his helmet radio. "Yes, I can hear you clearly," he replied, trying to keep his voice calm even though his heart was beating very fast. On the bridge of the ship, everyone watched the main screen in complete silence. They could see Do-hyun's tiny figure floating in space, and the massive creature moving toward him. Dr. Kira stood next to Captain Thexmore, her 4 hands pressed against the control panel. "The creature has changed direction," Lieutenant Cora reported. "It's moving directly toward Do-hyun now." Commander Rix made angry clicking sounds with his mouth. That human just signed his death warrant, and probably ours too. But Dr. Kira noticed something strange. "Look at its movement pattern. It's slowing down." She turned to the sensor operator. "What are the creature's energy readings?" "That's odd," the sensor operator said, studying his screen. "Its energy levels are dropping. Usually they spike before an attack, but this is the opposite." Do-hyun watched the Void Stalker approach. The creature was moving more slowly now, almost carefully. It reminded him of a cat creeping up to investigate something new, curious but ready to run away if needed. "I'm going to start the communication attempt now," Do-hyun said into his radio. He reached for the controls on his suit's emergency beacon. The beacon was designed to send distress signals to rescue ships, but Do-hyun had a different plan. He had studied the recordings of the Void Stalker's calls and noticed they followed certain patterns. Now he was going to try to copy those patterns. The first signal he sent was simple: 3 short pulses, then 2 long ones, then 3 short pulses again. It was based on the most common pattern he had heard in the creature's calls. For a moment, nothing happened. The Void Stalker continued moving toward him, and Do-hyun wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. Then something amazing occurred. The creature stopped. The massive beast hung motionless in space about a kilometer away from Do-hyun. The lights under its crystal skin began to pulse in a new pattern. Do-hyun watched carefully and realized the creature was copying his signal. 3 short pulses, 2 long ones, 3 short ones. "Did you see that?" Dr. Kira whispered on the bridge. It responded to him. Captain Thexmore leaned forward in his chair. In 30 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. "What is it doing?" "It's communicating," Dr. Kira said, her voice full of wonder. The human was right. The creature is trying to talk. Do-hyun felt excitement and fear mixing together in his chest. The Void Stalker was actually responding to him. He decided to try a more complex pattern, the one he had heard most often in the creature's lonely calls across space. This time, the creature responded faster. Its lights pulsed in the same pattern, but then it added something new at the end, a longer, more complex sequence that Do-hyun had never heard before. "It's teaching him," Dr. Kira said in amazement. "The creature is showing him new communication patterns." For the next hour, Do-hyun and the Void Stalker continued their strange conversation. The creature slowly moved closer, until it was only a few hundred meters away. Do-hyun could see its face now, if it could be called a face. It had what looked like eyes made of blue crystal, and they seemed to study him with intelligent curiosity. "Do-hyun," Dr. Kira said gently through the radio, "your suit's life support is at 50%. You need to think about coming back soon." "Just a little longer," Do-hyun replied. "I think it's trying to tell me something important." The creature's lights began flashing in a new pattern, faster and more urgent than before. Do-hyun tried to copy it, but he couldn't make his beacon flash that quickly. The creature seemed to understand the problem and slowed down its signals. Suddenly, Do-hyun realized what the creature was trying to tell him. The pattern wasn't just communication, it was coordinates. The Void Stalker was showing him locations in space. "Dr. Kira," he said excitedly, "it's giving me star maps. The creature is showing me places it has been. On the bridge, Dr. Kira quickly worked with the navigation computer to understand what Do-hyun was describing. As the coordinates came in, a pattern began to appear on the star map. "These are all the places where ships have been destroyed," she said quietly. "But look at this. They're also the locations of ancient ruins that we've discovered over the past 50 years. Captain Thexmore studied the map. "What kind of ruins?" "Sites that are millions of years old," Dr. Kira explained. "We always thought they belonged to some extinct civilization, but what if—" She paused as a terrible and wonderful thought occurred to her. What if the Voidstalker isn't just a creature? What if it's the last survivor of that ancient civilization? The idea changed everything. If the Voidstalker was intelligent, if it had once been part of a great civilization, then its attacks on ships weren't random violence. It was trying to protect the ruins of its dead people. Do-hyun continued his conversation with the creature, and gradually he began to understand more. The Voidstalker had been alone for millions of years, watching over the empty ruins of its civilization. When ships came near those ancient sites, it drove them away, sometimes with more force than it intended. The creature wasn't evil. It was just very, very lonely, and it didn't know how to talk to the new species that had spread across the galaxy. "Do-hyun, you have to come back now," Dr. Kira said urgently. "Your life support is getting dangerously low." Do-hyun looked at his suit's display. Dr. Kira was right. He only had about 20 minutes of air left, but he didn't want to leave. For the first time in millions of years, the Voidstalker had found someone who would listen to it. He made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. Do-hyun reached up and began to unlock his helmet. "What are you doing?" Dr. Kira shouted through the radio. "No," Captain Thexmore commanded. "Do not remove your helmet." But Do-hyun had already taken it off. He held the helmet in his hands and floated in open space, protected only by his suit's emergency force field. The force field would only last for a few minutes, but he needed the creature to see his face. The Voidstalker moved closer, its crystal eyes focusing on Do-hyun's exposed face. For a moment that felt like forever. The ancient creature and the young human stared at each other across the vastness of space. Then something beautiful happened. The Voidstalker began to make a new sound. Not the lonely calls it had been sending across the galaxy for millions of years, but something different. Something that sounded almost like singing. The creature's entire body began to glow with warm, gentle light. The sharp edges of its crystal surface seemed to soften, and the threatening spikes folded back against its body. For the first time since its people had died out millions of years ago, the Voidstalker felt understood. On the bridge of the stellar harmony, everyone watched in amazement. The galaxy's most feared monster was purring like a giant space cat, and the lights from its body were so beautiful that several crew members began to cry. "Impossible," Commander Rix whispered. "No," Dr. Kira said, tears running down her blue face. "Not impossible, just human." Do-hyun quickly put his helmet back on as his force field began to fail. He had used up almost all of his suit's power, but it had been worth it. The creature understood now that he was a friend, not an enemy. As he began the journey back to the ship, the Voidstalker followed him slowly, keeping pace with his movement. It was no longer the galaxy's most dangerous predator. It had become something new, a guardian watching over the first being in millions of years who had shown it kindness. "Control, this is Do-hyun," he said into his radio. "I'm coming home, and I think I'm bringing a friend." 3 weeks had passed since Do-hyun's incredible meeting with the creature that everyone now called Solace. The name had been his idea, he said. The Voidstalker had seemed so happy to finally have someone to talk to that Solace felt like the right name. The news had spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communications could carry it. Every major news network, military organization, and government wanted to know about the human who had tamed the galaxy's most feared monster. Do-hyun found himself famous in ways he had never wanted to be. Admiral Nari Park stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Soul's Pride, watching through the main screen as Solace moved gracefully alongside the stellar harmony. The massive crystal creature had not left the research ship's side since the first contact. It followed them through space like a loyal pet, but a pet that could destroy entire fleets if it wanted to. "Sister," she said into the communication system, "I'm still having trouble believing what I'm seeing." Do-hyun's voice came back through the speakers, calm as always. You should see it up close, Nari. Solace is beautiful when you're not afraid of it. Admiral Nari shook her head. Her little brother had always been different from other people. Even as a child, he would try to make friends with the neighborhood dogs that everyone else was afraid of. Now he had done the same thing with a space monster. Dr. Kira was in the research lab studying all the new information they had learned about Solace. The creature had shown them amazing things over the past 3 weeks. It could communicate through light patterns, sound waves, and even by changing the shape of its crystal body. Most importantly, it had shared the locations of hundreds of ancient ruins across the galaxy. The archaeological implications are staggering, Dr. Kira said to her research team. Solace's people built structures that still exist after millions of years. They had technology we can barely understand. Dr. Yila's butterfly wings changed to an excited yellow color. And Solace remembers all of it. It's like having a living history book from the dawn of galactic civilization. But not everyone was happy about the new situation. Commander Rix paced back and forth in the security briefing room, his insect-like features twisted with worry. You're all thinking like scientists, he said angrily to the other security officers. But I'm thinking like a soldier. That creature destroyed the battleship Invincible just 2 months ago. 700 crew members died. Now we're supposed to trust it because one human made it purr? Lieutenant Voss, a young officer from the bear-like Urson species, nodded nervously. What if it's just pretending to be friendly? What if this is some kind of trap? Commander Rix pointed at the main screen, which showed Solace moving through space near their ship. Look at that thing. It's bigger than our entire vessel, and it's made of materials that can deflect our strongest weapons. If it decides to turn on us, we'll be dead before we can send a distress signal. Meanwhile, in his small quarters, Do-hyun was reading reports from across the galaxy. Ships that had been too scared to travel certain routes were now using them safely. Solace had become a protector, driving away the smaller space creatures that sometimes attacked merchant vessels. But the reports also mentioned something that worried Do-hyun. Other ancient creatures were starting to appear in different parts of the galaxy. Creatures that had been sleeping in deep space for millions of years were waking up, possibly drawn by Solace's new activity. His door chimed, and Mira entered with a concerned expression on her silver face. Do-hyun, have you seen the latest reports from the Outer Rim about the new creatures appearing? Yes, I've been reading about them. Do-hyun set down his tablet and looked at his friend. I think Solace's awakening is causing a chain reaction. 3 merchant ships reported being followed by something they called a crystal snake near the Vega system, Mira said. And there are rumors of a singing mountain that appeared near the trade stations in the Centauri sector. Do-hyun felt a mixture of excitement and worry. If more creatures like Solace were awakening, it could change the entire galaxy, but it could also be very dangerous if those creatures were not as friendly as Solace had become. I need to talk to Solace about this, he said, standing up. Dr. Kira was thinking the same thing. She had been studying the ancient ruins that Solace had shown them, and she was beginning to understand something important about the creature's people. They hadn't just been one species, they had been a collection of different species that worked together to build a great civilization. She made her way to the communication room where Do-hyun often talked with Solace. The human was already there, using the ship's external lights to send messages to the creature. Solace is worried too, Do-hyun said when he saw Dr. Kira enter. It says its people called the awakening creatures the Lonely Ones. They've been sleeping since the great civilization fell. Are they dangerous? Dr. Kira asked. Do-hyun translated the question into light patterns, and Solace responded with a complex series of flashes. It says they're not evil, but they're confused and scared. They've been alone for so long that they don't remember how to interact with other beings peacefully. Like Solace was before you talked to it, Dr. Kira realized. Exactly, Do-hyun said, but there could be hundreds of them across the galaxy. I can't talk to all of them myself. Dr. Kira studied the human's face. What if you didn't have to do it alone? Over the next few days, Dr. Kira worked with Do-hyun and Solace to develop something new, a way to teach other people how to communicate with the ancient creatures. They called it the Empathy Protocol. The idea was simple but revolutionary. Instead of trying to fight or run away from unknown creatures, teams of specially trained people would try to understand what the creatures wanted and help them find it peacefully. Admiral Nari was the first military officer to volunteer for the training. Despite her worries about her brother's safety, she could see that his method worked better than anything the military had tried. "It goes against everything we've been taught," she said as she practiced the communication techniques. "But if it can prevent wars and save lives, we have to try it." The first test of the empathy protocol came sooner than anyone expected. A distress call arrived from a mining colony in the Kepler system. One of the awakened creatures, a being that looked like a giant crystal flower, had appeared near their space station and was blocking all ships from leaving or entering the system. Traditional military response would be to send a battle fleet, Admiral Nari said during the emergency meeting. But that might just make the creature angry, like what happened with Solace before. Captain Thexamore looked at the star map showing the creature's location. "What do you recommend, Dr. Kira?" "We send a small team using the empathy protocol," she said. "Do-hyun, myself, and Admiral Nari. 3 people who can try to communicate with the creature and understand what it wants." Commander Rix slammed his hand on the table. "You want to risk the lives of our best researchers and a fleet admiral on an untested theory?" "The theory isn't untested," Dr. Kira replied calmly. "We've been using it successfully with Solace for weeks." Do-hyun spoke up quietly. "Solace wants to come with us. It thinks it can help translate between us and the other creature." The room went silent. The idea of bringing one ancient monster to talk to another ancient monster seemed either brilliant or completely insane. Admiral Nari made the decision. "We'll try it, but we go in with a small, fast ship that can escape quickly if things go wrong, and we maintain constant communication with the main fleet." 2 days later, a small diplomatic vessel called the Bridge Builder left the main fleet and headed toward the Kepler system. On board were Do-hyun, Dr. Kira, Admiral Nari, and a small crew of volunteers who believed in the empathy protocol. Following behind them, moving through space with graceful ease, was Solace. The ancient creature had changed its appearance for the mission, folding its sharp edges inward and glowing with soft, peaceful light. It wanted to show the other awakened creature that it came in friendship, not war. As they approached the mining colony, they could see the new creature floating in space near the space station. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, like a giant flower made of crystal and light, with petals that spread across several kilometers. "It's blocking the space lanes," Admiral Nari observed, "but it's not attacking the station, just like Solace used to do, scaring people away rather than destroying them." Do-hyun studied the creature through the ship's sensors. "I think it's protecting something. Look at the way it's positioned. It's between the mining operation and one of the uninhabited planets." Dr. Kira checked her readings of the planet the creature seemed to be guarding. "There are ancient ruins on that planet's surface, very old ones even by Solace's standards. It's protecting a graveyard," Do-hyun realized, just like Solace was doing when it attacked ships near the ancient ruins. "This creature thinks the miners are going to disturb its people's resting place." As the bridge builder moved closer to the crystal flower, everyone on board prepared for the most important diplomatic mission in galactic history. The success or failure of the empathy protocol would determine whether humanity's gift for understanding others could bring peace to the galaxy, or whether the awakening of the ancient creatures would lead to a 6 months had passed since the successful mission to the Kepler system. The crystal flower creature, which Do-hyun had named Bloom, now peacefully shared space with the mining colony. The miners had agreed to mark the ancient burial sites as protected areas, and in return, Bloom helped them find rare crystals in other parts of the system. The success of the empathy protocol had changed everything. What started as one human's crazy idea to talk to a monster had become the foundation of a new kind of diplomacy. The Galactic Council had officially recognized humans as the primary mediators for contact with unknown species. Dr. Kira stood in her new office on Harmony Station, the galaxy's first center for interspecies understanding. Through her window, she could see ships from dozens of different worlds coming and going. But more importantly, she could see Solace playing with a group of young space creatures that had recently been discovered near the Andromeda border. The ancient being had become something no one had expected, a teacher and protector. For the smaller creatures of space, ships no longer feared traveling the old dangerous routes. Instead, they hoped to catch a glimpse of Solace guiding lost creatures to safety, or showing them how to find food in the cosmic dust clouds. "Aunt Kira," a young voice called out. She turned to see Jin Woo, Do-hyun's nephew, running into her office. The 16-year-old human had been studying at Harmony Station for the past 3 months, learning everything he could about interspecies communication. He was part of the first generation of humans being trained specifically for diplomatic contact with unknown species. Uncle Do-hyun says the new creature in the Vega system is ready to meet more people, Jin-woo said excitedly. Can I go on the mission? Dr. Kira smiled at the boy's enthusiasm. Jin-woo reminded her of his uncle, curious, brave, and naturally gifted at understanding others. That depends. Have you finished your studies on ancient prior history? Yes, and Dr. Yila says my emotion sensing tests are getting better too. Jin-woo's eyes lit up with pride. I can now tell the difference between fear aggression and territory protection in most species. The door to the office opened, and Do-hyun walked in. He looked tired but happy. He had just returned from a 3-week mission to help establish communication with a creature that looked like a living asteroid belt near the rim worlds. How did it go? Dr. Kira asked. Scatter, that's what we're calling it, was just lonely, Do-hyun said, sitting down in one of the office chairs. It had been following merchant ships for months, trying to figure out how to say hello. The ship crews thought it was trying to attack them. And now? Jin-woo asked. Now Scatter helps guide ships through the asteroid fields in that sector. It knows where all the safe passages are. Do-hyun smiled at his nephew. I heard you want to come on the Vega mission. Jin-woo nodded eagerly. Please, Uncle, I've been studying really hard and I think I'm ready. Do-hyun looked at Dr. Kira, who nodded her approval. All right, he said. But you follow orders exactly, and if things get dangerous, you return to the ship immediately. I promise. Later that evening, Dr. Kira found herself on the observation deck of Harmony Station. The view never got old, space filled with ships from across the galaxy, all working together in ways that had seemed impossible just a year ago. Admiral Nari joined her at the window. Do-hyun's sister had become the head of the new Peaceful Contact Division, a military branch dedicated to exploration and diplomacy rather than warfare. Hard to believe how much has changed, Admiral Nari said. A year ago, half the galaxy was afraid to travel certain routes. Now those same routes are the safest in known space. Your brother started something incredible, Dr. Kira replied. Who would have thought that one act of compassion could reshape galactic civilization? That's the thing about Do-hyun, Admiral Nari said with pride. He's always seen possibilities where others see problems. Through the window they watched as Solace moved slowly past the station. The ancient creature had grown larger over the months, not from feeding on destroyed ships but from happiness. Dr. Kira had learned that Solace's species grew when they felt emotionally fulfilled. The once lonely monster was now surrounded by friends, both the small space creatures it protected and the humans it had learned to trust. The next morning, the diplomatic ship New Harmony departed for the Vega system. On board were Do-hyun, Jin-woo, Dr. Kira, and a small team of specialists. Solace followed alongside, its crystal surface glowing with gentle colors that meant excitement and anticipation. The creature they were going to meet had been spotted by long-range sensors 3 weeks ago. It looked like a massive tree made of metal and crystal, floating in space near an old star. Unlike some of the other awakened creatures, this one had not interacted with any ships. It simply stayed in one place, motionless, as if waiting for something. What do you think it wants? Jin-woo asked as they approached the system. We'll find out, Do-hyun said. But remember, every creature we've met so far has been alone for millions of years. They're all dealing with that loneliness in different ways. When they reached the Vega system, they found the tree creature exactly where the sensors had reported it. The being was beautiful and sad at the same time. Its metal branches spread out across space like it was trying to embrace the entire universe, but its crystal leaves were dim and dark. Do-hyun studied the creature through the ship's instruments. It's not moving at all. Even its energy readings are very low. Solace moved closer to the ship and began flashing light patterns. Do-hyun translated the message. Solace says this one is called a grove keeper. Its people used to tend gardens of living stars. Dr. Kira checked her readings of the nearby star. The star is dying. It's almost out of fuel. The grove keeper is trying to save it, Do-hyun realized. It's been pouring its own energy into the star to keep it alive, but it's not working. Jin-woo looked confused. Why would it try to save a dying star? Do-hyun began putting on his spacesuit. Because that's what its people did. They were gardeners on a cosmic scale. This grovekeeper is trying to do its job even though there's no one left to help it. The mission to help the grovekeeper took 2 weeks. Working together, the humans, Solace, and other awakened creatures figured out how to safely relocate the ancient being to a young, healthy star system. The grovekeeper's joy when it realized it could successfully tend to living stars again was visible across half the galaxy. Its crystal leaves blazed with light so bright that ships hundreds of light years away reported seeing the glow. As the months passed, more awakened creatures were discovered and peacefully contacted. Each one had a different story, a different need, but they all shared the same basic desire to find purpose and companionship in a universe that had moved on without them. The success of the human approach to these encounters had profound effects on galactic society. Species that had been preparing for war began focusing on understanding instead. The concept of empathy as a tool of diplomacy spread from humans to other species, creating a new era of cooperation. 1 year after the first contact with Solace, Dr. Kira found herself writing a report for the Galactic Council. She looked out her office window at the view that had become familiar. Harmony Station bustling with activity, ships from countless worlds working together, and Solace moving peacefully through space with a group of young space creatures learning how to navigate the cosmic currents. In her report, she wrote, "The human capacity for empathy has proven to be more than just a species trait. It is a gift that can transform the galaxy. Where we once saw monsters and threats, humans helped us see individuals with needs and feelings. The awakened ancients are not our enemies. They are the last survivors of civilizations that fell before most of our species even existed. They deserve our respect, our understanding, and our help in finding their place in the modern universe." Jinwoo had become the youngest certified interspecies mediator in galactic history. His uncle Do-hyun continued to take on the most challenging cases, creatures that seemed impossible to communicate with, beings that others had given up on. But he never lost faith that understanding was possible. "Every creature in the universe wants the same basic things," Do-hyun often told his students. "To be safe, to have purpose, and to not be alone. If you remember that, you can find a way to connect with anyone." The final scene of this story took place on Harmony Station's main observation deck. Representatives from hundreds of worlds had gathered to celebrate the first anniversary of the peaceful contact protocols. Through the massive windows, they could see the most beautiful sight in the galaxy. Dozens of awakened ancient creatures moving through space in a graceful dance. No longer alone, no longer angry, no longer feared, Solace led the dance, its crystal surface reflecting the light of 1,000 stars. Around it moved Bloom, Scatter, the Grovekeeper, and many others, each one unique, each one precious, each one finally understood. Dr. Kira stood with Do-hyun and Jinwoo, watching the cosmic ballet outside. "When I first met you," she said to Do-hyun, "I thought you were crazy for wanting to talk to the Voidstalker. And now?" Do-hyun asked with a smile. "Now I understand that the craziest thing would have been not to try," she replied. "You showed us that the universe isn't full of monsters waiting to destroy us. It's full of beings waiting to